Evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Big news today, and we start at the High Court, where the Supreme Court announced two major decisions relating to same-sex marriage, striking down a key section of the Defense of Marriage Act and giving a boost to gay rights in California. We're going to start in Washington. We're going to go to ABC's Taman Bradley. He joins the Supreme Court with the very latest. Taman?
Good evening from the Supreme Court, where today history was made. A big victory for same-sex couples, and all across the country tonight, a loud reaction. Outside the Supreme Court, gay rights supporters savored the victory. It was 83-year-old Edie Windsor's win on behalf of all the legally married same-sex couples.
We won everything we asked and hoped for.
The High Court struck down the Federal Defense of Marriage Act, saying it violates gays' equal protection right under the law. The ruling clears the way for legally married same-sex couples to receive federal benefits. The vote was divided along ideological lines, 5-4. Not everyone's happy.
The Supreme Court has no authority when it comes to the nature of marriage.
In a separate decision, the justices cleared the way for legal same-sex marriage in California by refusing to rule on the substance of a challenge to California's Prop 8. The court simply said the defenders of the law had no standing to bring the case before the court.
To be able to return to California and finally get married.
California officials say that day could come soon.
There'll be legal same-sex marriages in California within the next month or so.
President Obama phoned the plaintiffs in both cases. One call captured live on MSNBC.
Thank you, Mr. President.
This is not over. The Supreme Court did not decide whether gays and lesbians have the constitutional right to marry. Keep in mind that 30 states ban same-sex marriage in their constitutions. Live tonight at the Supreme Court, Taman Bradley, ABC News. Now back to you.
All right, Taman, thank you very much. As you'd imagine here, we're going to focus quite a bit on this issue, and we're going to do it from a few different directions. We're going to be talking about consequences both on the legal side and then also on the human side, and we'll have guests as well as our panel here who can really speak directly to both. But let's start with the legal questions that were answered and some that weren't entirely answered today. Nonetheless, a historic day on coming out of our High Court. I want to bring in our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman, who parsed through some of the language here and also spoke to somebody who both deals with this on a professional level and also on a personal level.
Well, yeah, this is one of these days where the law and the personal application of it seem to be conjoined. I spoke with Lisa Padilla. She's an attorney who specializes in financial and estate planning for non-traditional families. Many of her clients are same-sex couples, and she herself is in a same-sex marriage. She broke down the Supreme Court ruling in plain English. Both rulings are being widely considered victories for same-sex marriage supporters, despite the fact that the court could have gone further on Prop 8 and yet didn't, really only focusing on the impact in California. Do you agree that it was a victory for supporters of same-sex marriage on both rulings?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. The DOMA ruling gives same-sex couples equal standing to their counterparts who are heterosexuals who are married in states that allow marriage. So absolutely, it's a victory. There are a couple of open questions that are presented because of the decision, though. One of them is whether or not, if you're married in a state that allows marriage, for instance, if you're married in New York but you move down to Texas, whether or not your marriage would be recognized by virtue of full faith and credit. Or will your marriage be recognized only on the federal level but not the state level? Or will it be recognized under both? So it's created some questions, but as far as the 13 states and the DC that permits marriage, it's clear, it's unequivocal, it's equal.
The specifics of what the ruling on DOMA entail, focus in one of the cases, or with the plaintiffs, focus on the estate tax or the death tax, depending on how you look at it. This is something that you've written about before. What will it mean for same-sex couples when it comes to that benefit and other federal benefits?
Well, for the planning part of it, the first and foremost thing that they will recognize is that they do not have to spend as much as they had to in the past to try to mimic or emulate the stereotypical husband and wife scenario on a financial level. So their legal fees are going to go down significantly. The second thing they're going to recognize is that they'll be able to take advantage of a lot of different tax opportunities that they hadn't been able to take advantage of in the past, such as gifting. Between a married couple, a federally recognized married couple, you can give a gift between a husband and a wife, and it could be an unlimited amount, and there would be no gift tax consequence at all. Prior to today's ruling, a same-sex couple couldn't do that. They were limited to the annual exclusion amount, which is $15,000. Now, because DOMA has been stricken, same-sex couples can give an unlimited amount of money to each other and not have to worry about filing, even just a mere process of filing a gift tax return. They're married, it's done. Nobody will look into their pockets.
The Secretary of Defense Hagel has already said that the military is going to start extending benefits to same-sex couples. That's one of the changes that today's ruling leads to. It will likely change the rules when it comes to same-sex couples where one of the partners is not a U.S. citizen in terms of coming into the United States and being able to apply for citizenship. What other changes are in store for same-sex couples, particularly in states like New York and Connecticut where it is legal?
Well, the first and foremost is the health insurance issues. In my own marriage, my wife had to pay an extra penalty to provide me with health insurance for our family. Now she won't have to pay that extra amount. We'll have the ability, if God forbid one of us goes before the other, and I guess one of us will, Social Security benefits will be able to be paid to the survivor of us. We don't have to worry about paying an estate tax on the first death anymore, like Edie had to do. There are a lot of federal benefits that we get that are, everything is just wide open. We could file federal income tax returns now in a joint manner, where before we weren't able to. It was actually quite difficult in states that allowed marriage, where we had to, in effect, create 3 different tax returns. One of the tax returns was a federal tax return that was supposedly a pro forma to file jointly. A second one was filing separately, which was actually filed. And then the state, we would file jointly. So it's like, now we don't have to do that. We could just file jointly on both the federal and the state level. It's terrific. Now we know for sure that people will be treated equally. That if, God forbid something happened to my brother, his wife would be taking care of him in the hospital. If something, God forbid, happened to me, my wife will be taking care of me in the hospital. It's the same. We'll have the same access, we'll have the same treatment, and we'll have the people who we love next to us. I mean, that's critical.
You know the plaintiffs in the DOMA case. You said that you had visited with them earlier, or with her earlier, and you'll be with her again later. What are you going to say to her? What have you said already, and what do you think that moment's going to be like?
I'll tell you something funny that Edie said. As she was getting into a car to go to her next appointment, she asked Allison, and Allison's my wife, she asked Allison and me, does the number 13 mean anything to you? And we kind of looked at her, we're like, where is this coming from? She said 13 states and DC have marriage. 13 states, just like the 13 colonies. We're starting all over again. So I just thought that was a terrific comment about not only where we're starting, where we've been, where we are now, and where we're going, but also how she really recognizes where she is in terms of history. She realizes that she is now a historical figure and a turning point for our entire American society. And I'm very grateful that I've had an opportunity to intersect my life with hers. She actually gave us a blessing at our wedding, so I thought that was really pretty cool.
Between her reaction and just absorbing the ruling from the Supreme Court today, what's your emotional state today? How are you doing?
I have been laughing and crying, and it's just been an emotional roller coaster, but all in a good way. I am just so happy that my clients, that my friends, that my community, that my society, and that America is really now beginning to realize that when you love someone, that shouldn't prohibit, or that shouldn't influence, who you love should not influence property rights. Property rights are property rights, and if you are willing to take the step and register as a married couple, then you have to take all the responsibilities that are involved with that, and you should also get all of the rights that are involved with that too. And now we have that.
And finally, for the 39 states where same-sex marriage is not allowed or has not been determined yet, what's your feeling in terms of how this impacts what will happen in those states?
I think in the next 3 years we'll have all the states, even Texas.
Even Texas. And Rich, Lisa also told me that she was pleased but not surprised by both of today's rulings.
Okay, here, and just keep an idea, everybody, at the bottom of your screen. We've been asking you all day long for your reaction after the court came down with these rulings in the 10 o'clock hour, and you're going to see some of those comments throughout our conversation this evening. All right, we're going to take a break here, but when we come back, we're going to hear from the first openly gay man to be elected to the New York State Assembly, Dan O'Donnell. He personally has been leading the fight for same-sex marriage in New York, and he was recently married himself. He's going to tell us what it means, forget about legislatively, what it means to him. Please, everybody, stay with us.
Incredibly proud and humble. Okay, wow, do I deserve this? It's an accident of history put me here. Ultimately, I think it's the end of suicides. I think it's the end of teenagers falling in love and not knowing that there's a future for them.
Today's Supreme Court ruling affirms the principle that gay married couples have the same right to be treated with dignity and respect as straight married couples.